Hi everybody, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome back to a brand new video. Welcome back to my channel. So, it is time for the next ghost train story, This book is written by Tony Reevy, Um, um, he's the one that wrote the book. Tony Reevy was the one that wrote the book here. And it's time for more ghost train stories to put on the travel channel, to let you guys put on the travel channel. This story is going to be called, this story I want to do here, this one right here, This is called Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special. It takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, and it takes place back in 1919. Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special. It takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, and it takes place in 1919, and it tells a story about a hobo. And then after that, I'm going to show you guys an example from the previous TV show Haunted Travels. And you'll see the apparitions appear, you'll see the ghost appear, and you'll see the story going back in time too. So without further ado, Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special. In 1919, a hobo named Lance stood by the tracks in Cleveland, Ohio, waiting to hop the 11:15 p.m. Cleveland Special back to his hometown of Roxburgh, West Virginia. After a few minutes, he looked around and spotted an older hobo squatting by the tracks. He walked over to the other beau and asked him where he was going. The beau replied in an oddly emotionless voice that he was going to Roxburgh, West Virginia. Lance was delighted to find a traveling partner and said so. The other hobo simply said, "You aren't going to be on the 11:15. Lance argued, but the other beau just sat there saying, "No, you won't be on the 11:15. The old beau never even looked at Lance. When the 11:15 whistled in the distance, the old hobo stood up with his back to Lance and got ready to hop the train. Lance stood up too without turning. The old hobo said, "That train will cause your death." Lance stared at the man and noticed that his red and green plaid shirt was soaked with blood. He looked away, and the next thing he knew, the other man leaned right over and yelled in his ear, "You aren't going on this train, mister." Turning quickly, Lance looked the stranger full in the face for the first time. What he saw was horrible. The man's face was deeply scratched, bloody, and partly crushed. Lance grabbed at the creature, but his hands went right through the bloody Rex plaid shirt. Lance screamed and fainted. When Lance awoke, the bloody hobo was gone. He hopped the next train out and made it to Roxburgh okay. He noticed a commotion around the depot when he got in. "What's going on?" he asked the depot janitor. "Oh, a hobo tried to jump off the Cleveland Special and got cut to bits. All that's left of him is pieces wrapped in in a plaid shirt. Lance felt sick to his stomach. Red and green plaid? He asked softly. The janitor stared at him. How in the heck did you know? He asked. So what Lance saw, that was his name, Lance. What Lance saw was the apparition of a hobo, and the apparition hobo was saying the whole time, you are not going to be on the 11:15 p.m. train. A long time ago, the hobo got run over by the hobo jumped off the Cleveland Special and got cut to bits. All that's left, he apparently jumped off the train and got cut to bits. Apparently the Lance had seen the apparition of the hobo, and he saw the ghost of the hobo. And then when he got to as soon as he got to Raltsburg, West Virginia, he told the station depot, he told the depot person that he had seen a apparition of a hobo wearing a bloody plaid shirt, and he jumped off and everything a long time ago, and got cut to bits. He got to Raltsburg safely. He got there safely, but he was really scared of what he saw. So I know you would be. I know you would be too. He was really scared of what he saw, because if that hobo in that bloody t-shirt frightened him, then I don't blame him. So, oh yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Now I'm gonna show you guys an example from the TV show Haunted Travels, and it will give you an idea of what Ghost Train ought to look like on the Travel Channel when you guys put it on there. When you guys put when you guys put the episode Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special on there, and also when you guys put Ghost Train and Ghost Train Legends on the Travel Channel, you'll know what to put. Okay? So Haunted Travels is going to show you of how it should look. It's going to it's going to show the story going back in time, and it's going to show the ghost and the spirits coming and stuff like that. And it will give you an example of how Ghost Train ought to look like on the Travel Channel. Okay, all right. So here it is. Here's Haunted Travels.
Cloudcroft, New Mexico is the kind of small town that immediately conjures up images of a time when the West was a bit more wild. But today, about 700 people live in Cloudcroft, where the pace is relaxed and locals greet you with a smile instead of a six-shooter.
People look out for one another, the businesses support each other, and it's just a great little community. It's a wonderful place to raise children and to vacation and relax. Relaxing is the big thing in Cloudcroft.
But it seems Cloudcroft's rough and tumble past still lingers. And there's one place in town where the past meets the present just about every night.
Welcome to the Lodge Resort and Spa in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. The Lodge is a full-service resort. A lot of people just come up here to rest and relax. We have an outdoor heated swimming pool, we have a sauna, we have an exercise room, we have a day spa that we offer massages and treatments and pedicures, manicures, things of that sort.
The Lodge also boasts an 18-hole golf course and a fine dining establishment.
Rebecca's is our fine dining restaurant, and most of our guests that lodge here, as well as people in the local area, about 2-hour drive market, they'll drive up just to have dinner at Rebecca's.
The restaurant gets its name from a longtime resident of the Lodge, who, on special occasions, has been known to make appearances out of thin air.
I had sweaty palms, my heart was just racing, and I know that when I went to see the staff downstairs, I just had this frightened look on my face.
I froze and my knees went weak, my legs went to jello, and I couldn't move and I couldn't speak, and the tips of my fingers were just shaking.
I knew it was Rebecca. I felt her presence in this area, and I knew it was her immediately.
The legend of Rebecca dates back to 1911, when the Lodge at Cloudcroft was built. It became a destination spot for local loggers and socialites looking to escape the hot New Mexico heat. But the hotel's claim to fame was its housekeepers.
Rebecca was a housekeeper here at the Lodge, and she took care of the rooms and the common areas, but she took care of a little more than that. She was what you might call a full-service housekeeper.
We also understand that she had evening duties, and she took care of some of the locals and visitors in the area.
Rebecca's promiscuous ways made her very popular among guests at the Lodge. But Rebecca's extracurricular activities didn't go over so well with her lumberjack boyfriend.
She really loved men, and she had a lumberjack boyfriend, and he worked out of town a lot. He wasn't here very often, and she entertained our guests, I could say. And one night, her boyfriend came back early from a logging trip.
He asked where she was, and when he found out, he flew into a fit of jealous rage. Legend says he cut off Rebecca's head and chopped up the rest of her body, burying the remains somewhere on the property of the Lodge, and leaving behind a feisty red-headed spirit with no plans on leaving her favorite haunt.
was checking a function in this dining room behind us and doing a quick count on tables and chairs. And maybe 25 seconds in the room, I stepped out of the room, and all 3 chandeliers on the mezzanine overlooking the lobby were swinging back and forth.
Making believers out of hotel staff and guests seems to be a top priority for Rebecca's ghost. Those skeptical of her existence are often her favorite targets.
I was training a new employee, and we came over here to the coffee machine. We started brewing coffee. We went over here to the computer, and I was training her on the computer. And she asked me about the ghost. I was a skeptic back then, and I shared that with her, and I said, but it's part of your job to know this. It's a bunch of bull, but you really need to share the story. At that time, now this is 15 feet away from the computer to the coffee maker. The basket with the grounds of coffee came flying at me all the way over here, hit me in the leg, hot water and hot coffee grounds exploded all over me.
Before the 2 women could even speak, the doors to the room flew open, and a great rush of energy swarmed into the room, paralyzing them both with fear.
Needless to say, that girl never came back the next day. I braved it out and came back, but it was quite terrifying.
Rebecca had made her point, and once again had made believers out of the doubtful. Staff have learned the best way to deal with Rebecca is to acknowledge her presence. But that doesn't make them any less terrified. One night, an employee needed to fix a water pipe in the hotel's basement, and she refused to go alone.
I enlisted the help of some young men who worked for me, who were in their late teens, 17, 18. And I had told them my stories of Rebecca, and they didn't really believe. In fact, they really laughed at the whole situation.
As they reached the bottom of the stairs, Marty spoke aloud to Rebecca, as she had always done.
I would say, I believe that you're here. I'm doing something to save water. I need to do this. Please, if you won't scare me, I won't bother you.
Her young helper wasn't impressed.
You could hear the young man laughing behind me. He thought it was ridiculous. So we got about halfway through the room. I was in front of him, and he was standing right off of my left shoulder. And he reached up in the pitch black, and he grabbed a hold of my shoulder. And you could literally tell that he was shaking from head to foot. He was so afraid that he could hardly speak.
The young man was led out of the basement, but couldn't relay what he had seen or experienced. One thing was certain, he wasn't laughing anymore.
His face was stark white. His arms were white. He was afraid. And I told him, all you have to do is tell her that you believe that she's here, and she won't bother you. But he got a first-hand experience with the spirit of the lodge, and it made believers out of him.
Perhaps Rebecca's bones are buried in the basement, and she doesn't like for her unmarked grave to be disturbed. And one night, Rebecca's lonely soul was seeking comfort from the living.
We had a couple visiting here, overnighting with their little girl. And her name was Rebecca, and she was about 6 years old, long red hair, quite beautiful, and she was intrigued by the Rebecca story.
The little girl asked her parents to read her Rebecca's tale before heading off to bed.
Later on, about 10:30 at night, I was in the lobby, and all of a sudden, Rebecca, the little 6-year-old Rebecca, is walking and she's holding, it looks like she's holding someone's hand. And she's in her very beautiful white flowing nightgown, and she's walking down the stairs, and I said, Rebecca, what are you doing? And she says, oh, Rebecca came to the room, got me up, and she's taking me on a stroll of the hotel.
Does Rebecca long for a child of her own? Is she tied to the site of her gruesome death? Whatever her reason for staying, just be sure to give your respects to the resident redhead at the lodge at Cloudcroft. The cost of ignoring her might not be worth the price you'll pay. Later.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there. Now did you guys see of how the story did you guys see of how the stories went back in time and the people telling their tales, telling their stories of what happened and stuff? Did you see the story going back in time like that? Well, guess what? Guess what, you guys? That's what the TV show Ghost Train has to look like. And that's what it has to do. That's what it has to do. That is what the TV show Ghost Train has to do. The story that I just read, the story that I just read, Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special, the Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special, and the Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special. That is what you guys have to let the story go back in time and do the same thing with the hobo, and it takes place back in 1919, the year of 1919, and it takes place in Cleveland, Ohio. And that is what Ghost Train has to look like, and that is what the Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special has to look like too. Okay, so put that when you're putting the episodes, please put Ghost Tramp of the Cleveland Special in there. Add that, please add that to the to the episode, to the season episode. Please add that to the season episode too, and stuff like that. And be sure that you put it in there, okay? Okay? All right? So, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I'll be back later on this evening for another Ghost Train story for you guys, and give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to, and ring the bell. And I will see you guys for the next Ghost Train story later on this evening, okay? And happy haunted travels to you guys, and happy ghost watching, and happy ghost hunting. And I will see you guys later, okay? Boo. Bye.